Headlocks and Headphones does not endorse this advert, but is damn sure approved by CWF.
So hello, welcome. It's Headlocks and Headphones. I'm Martin Anderson. It's a new year. It's a new lockdown. We're all having to wear masks. Apparently I've got to wear masks in my work, so I should have to wear one now during the show. Do you know what? Actually, it's going to get a bit intrusive if I've got to wear the mask for the whole show. Welcome. This is Headlocks and Headphones. Hopefully you're wearing your mask where you need to and we don't have to be sending the boys around to deal with you like what happened in Aberdeen with that family who had the police come into their house without permission. Anyway, we're not going to get political in this show, if we can help it. So brand new year, everything hopefully getting a little bit better for everybody, apart from the fact we're in lockdown, apart from the fact wrestling's still pretty boring. A couple of interesting things happened this week, which we are going to talk about in the show review section later on. We do, of course, have an interview with JJ Andrews, which we didn't know we were getting. Very much at the last minute, I received a phone call from JJ, basically less than happy about the comments made by Stuart Murphy last week on the show. So he has a few things to say. We do have him for around about 20 minutes, and to say that a few of the things are a bit controversial would be an understatement. Let me just preface it this way. I certainly think that Murphy's going to be angry with what we say. I do believe that at least one person is going to be very nervous to hear the fact that their name is mentioned in that interview. I'm not going to mention any more than that. However, before we get there, let's head to the wrestling news. So yeah, an interesting period. We did find out something very, very interesting this week. So after All Out last year, Nick Jackson disappeared, and we all thought maybe it was a leg injury or something. I do remember on the show saying that there had been some rumors that he'd picked up an injury in the match. Turns out it was COVID. Now he basically went on to his Instagram this week, and I'm gonna quote him here, but we're gonna pop it up on the screen for you as well. He basically says, it's crazy to think there's still COVID deniers out there in the world. I had a pretty bad case of COVID in early September that kept me bedridden for nearly 3 weeks. I couldn't taste or smell for 2.5 months. And at one point, my whole body had hives, and my doctor said it was definitely from COVID. Matt had to do the majority of the work in our matches once I returned safely because I couldn't catch my breath. My cardio was finally back, but it took months to finally feel like myself again. Let's protect each other and wear a mask. Now, I opened the show wearing a mask. It wasn't that big a deal. The only reason I took it down was just so you could see my face and see how much I've aged since the start of the show. I don't mean in the past 20 minutes. I mean since the start of the show back in, well, we went online in March. So yeah, I've definitely aged since then. Now, several superstars have actually suffered from COVID over the past little while, and have went on social media to share their stories. So it's kind of interesting to see Nick Jackson coming out all this time after his case. So it's about 4 or 5 months after he had his one. It's good to know that he's fine and he's back wrestling again, but it just goes to show you that there's probably more people getting this than we know. I did see one thing where people were saying WWE have been quite secretive about their COVID outbreaks, and that's something that's really a negative. And this story here kind of proves that it's not just WWE that are trying to keep things close to the vest, because whilst AEW fans were on Twitter criticizing WWE for not revealing the names of people who had COVID, AEW have openly admitted it themselves through one of their EVPs. So, you know, perhaps the comments from Brody Lee's wife, which is, we're all wrestling fans, and that's kind of meant to be the important thing. I think there's a WWE section and an AEW section, and they're at war, and they're going to continue to post nasty stuff to each other. I disagree with a lot of the stuff that AEW are booking. I just don't think it's good enough. The match quality, however, is great. Conversely, I think the match quality in WWE has often been very poor due to lack of time, but the creative side, in terms of how they do certain stories, particularly Buddy Murphy, Rey Mysterio thing was actually really cool. So there's something in each of them, and hopefully we can kind of gravitate to the one that works best for us. Now, let's move on to the revelation that the Superstar Spectacle is coming. WWE India posted the following: breaking news, the first ever hashtag WWE Superstar Spectacle is coming soon. Hashtag stay tuned. Hashtag India. Now, it was announced before that there's a shooting date of the 22nd of January, the day before my wife's birthday. And let's be fair, as producer, I probably shouldn't tell you what her birthday present is. I better not. She is listening. She hasn't been on the show for a couple of weeks, but she does watch before it goes online to make sure I haven't called anybody the C word and stuff like that. Anyway, so the shooting date, Friday, the 22nd of January. For the India special, with India talent taking part in photo shoots and promotional materials. The plan is for it to actually go onto normal television in India and the WWE Network. Post did note they can't confirm the show would be branded under the NXT India name, and it was stressed that this had been a long-term project with many variables, and there's possibly going to be changes right up until the last minute. So it's interesting. I mean, India is a massive, massive audience, so it's going to be interesting to see what they do with a product based in India. Also, bear in mind, people like Mansoor, who may not be Indian, but certainly would be marketable in that region. His look would very much fit in that area. There is also the Singh brothers, Jinder Mahal, and then obviously other names from NXT can make appearances here and there as well. Certainly, I think an appearance from Drew McIntyre as the COVID situation eases off and things are a little bit more relaxed would be a huge thing. Certainly, any brand WWE launches would want to have their top talent on there. And I think WWE have got several people from Asia who, and I'm not trying to label everybody from Asia as the same, but certainly familiar faces in that region would be very good for that brand. I think WWE expanding can only be a good thing. Now, one interesting thing that I did see was one of my favorite wrestlers, which is Raven, who recalls why he had heat with Vince McMahon. Now, he spoke about having heat with Vince McMahon in the 90s, and this is what he had to say. It's not what I want to do, it's not me. Shane McMahon should have been Johnny Polo. Raven said before being asked if his friendship with Shane at the time had made Vince McMahon uncomfortable. And this is when Raven replied with, yeah, that's true. Me and Shane used to be really tight, but we drifted apart. He'd go out with me every night. Big heat with Linda and Vince. The boys thought I was kissing ass for my career, but actually killed my career and gave me heat. This is one of those interesting scenarios. He's almost the direct opposite of what happened with Stephanie McMahon. One of the boys ended up dating Stephanie, and it benefited his career. That would be Triple H. Arguably a better wrestling mind, at least at the time. Hunter's definitely developed, but Raven's wrestling mind is very, very good. If you've ever seen any of the On the Road with Raven DVDs, Raven has a great storytelling ability, even if he's pretty goddamn lazy. To know that the fact that he was friends with the son and had a relationship, not that kind. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but just not that kind. Just to know that he had a relationship with the son, and being seen as a negative influence actually damaged his possibilities. Imagine how different WWE would be if Raven had ended up becoming close to Stephanie. Doesn't bear thinking about. I mean, you might not have seen Raven actually hit the drug peaks that he had. But remember, in the mid-90s, Raven was the host of WWF Mania when he was Johnny Polo. He also ended up being the host of Superstars and various other things for a little while. He certainly was on the announce team for syndicated shows. So they definitely saw something in him. It's just he wanted to be seen as the guy who could go in the ring, and that's why he left and tried it on the independent scene and was picked up by ECW pretty quickly. Now, talking about somebody kind of trying to make the best for themselves and leaving and trying to go somewhere else, Dalton Castle, who is a former ROH World Champion, is now a free agent. Apparently, he was offered a very good deal that would put him as one of, if not the highest paid of all time in Ring of Honor. but he's still considering it. He's looking at the free agent market and any offers that may be made before he agrees to a new deal with Ring of Honor. Now, there was some rumors that he was going to AEW last year when his contract expires. There is, of course, some suggestion WWE may be interested in him, somebody who would certainly fit in with that little Undisputed Era type style. Certainly, he's coming from the same place as Roderick Strong, Daniel Bryan, and various others, and holding the same titles that these guys have held as well. Dalton Castle, somebody who I've never really got into, never really got on board with the gimmick. However, I am a fan of his in-ring stuff, so it'd be quite interesting to see what happens. Now, what's quite interesting is WWE have now started pulling shows from the network. Of course, rumors abounded that there was going to be some changes as WWE moved away from exclusively putting pay-per-views on to WWE Network. They have partners in America now that are going to be receiving content, not just pay-per-views, but also some of the content that is meant to be WWE Network exclusive. They also have the free version as well, which kind of waters down the perceived value for some people because, okay, the free version has different content every month with adverts. But unless you're wanting to watch the entire library, which I've probably not managed all of it, but I've done all the WrestleManias, the Royal Rumbles, the In Your Houses, the SummerSlam, Survivor Series. I've watched Nitro all the way through, Thunder all the way through, Raw all the way through, SmackDown I haven't got to yet, Sunday Night Heat, and WWF Superstars. Not the new shitty one, but the old one. I've watched all the episodes of those that they have up on the network. But one thing you won't be watching is WrestleMania 24, and apparently they pulled it this week, and the people at the network are not entirely sure why it's been pulled either, at least those who communicate with the media. There were some issues back a few years ago. I Get Money, which is a song by 50 Cent, was actually a licensing issue for WWE. The DVD version was a bit of a pain in the bum because they couldn't actually put that version of the song on. But WWE are used to editing these things out. However, it looks like possibly that's risen up again and is something that WWE are having to go out and fix. WrestleMania 24, one of the good ones, possibly the peak of CM Punk's career, the retirement of Ric Flair, massive match for Edge, which, if you haven't seen WrestleMania 24, go out of your way to watch it when it goes back on the network and see if it is the song that's been changed. I'm kind of intrigued as to why it was taken off. If it wasn't the song, then what was it? Now, two interesting little tidbits this week. AEW donating food and clothing to charity, which Brian Pillman Jr. was the one who revealed it. He said that he spent the day with two of my favorite AEW stars, Rebel Tania and the Red Velvet, handing out food and clothes to the homeless of Jacksonville with the Love Alive charity for the city that has allowed us to have a career in wrestling. I think it's the least we could do. I think it's cool when companies do things like that. I know that there's quite a few things out there that are negative right now about wrestling. So it's good to see folk out there doing something kind of cool. Although, if you look again at the picture, you will see one of the girls wearing the plastic visor, which you've read any of the expert advice, and I'm sure you have. The plastic visors are less than pointless. They're actually a negative. But she's also wearing a mask underneath. Doesn't make any sense. I suppose she's thinking that she's sleeping with somebody from Northfield here in Aberdeen. She's double bagging. If you know what that means, great. If you don't, then, Google it. Don't Google it. You really don't want to Google it. Anyway, so let's talk about something else. Ring of Honor also this week have put out something free, and it's a Brody Lee match. It's in honor of John Huber, Brody Lee, and it's Brody Lee versus Jerry Lynn, which I'm going to pop the link for on screen just now as well, so you can go out of your way to check it. It is on the Ring of Honor YouTube for those that just want to go and have a little search. A free full match on their YouTube, which is a very cool thing for them to do. Now, we're going to talk about what has happened on Raw and SmackDown in a second, but if you haven't seen SmackDown, a little bit of a spoiler from Adam Pearce on his Twitter. I enjoyed my 2-decade ride. I honestly loved it. And at the end, I was ready and happy to ride off into the sunset. The head of the table put the keys back in my hand and forced me to take the wheel, and so we ride again. What do I mean by that? Well, find out when we talk about Raw and SmackDown. But I do want to mention the fact that Adam Pearce is one of the best guys in wrestling. Now, on Twitter, I messaged him, didn't get a reply. Fairly busy guy, I understand that. He was a producer for WWE. So I tweeted him and said, coming to the show tonight, going to be wearing fancy dress. I was dressed as Bret Hart, obviously, and asked him if he would sign my son's birthday card. To which he said, if you find me, I'll sign it. So during the show, I ended up taking a picture with my phone in front of me like this, with Adam Pearce behind me at my shoulder here. So that when I took the picture and tweeted him, he actually replied and said, well, come and get me. And in the end, he did. He signed the birthday card for my son, which was very, very cool of him. And an interesting side note, the 7 Levels of Hate match that he had, or series of matches he had with the Colt Cabana, actually inspired a birthday present for our producer Zoey Styles, which was the 7 Days of Sammy, which I know the 7 Levels of Hate is a play on the fact that Colt Cabana was Jewish and it was meant to be a dig, but we turned it into something funny and positive. So there were 7 days, 7 different activities for Sammy's birthday. Always have to find a way of making everything wrestling related, and let's just say maybe Sammy's birthday present this year is wrestling related. Or maybe it's not. Because I know you're watching. I'm not going to tell you what your present is. I just like to tease sometimes. Now, one of the cool things about NXT UK is that they have their own recording facility within the PT studios. And they have this week put out something quite interesting. Now, Top Gear host Freddie Flintoff tagged actor Tom Davis while watching an episode of NXT UK, and it looks like they may be coming in for an angle. And you can check out their Twitter exchange on his Twitter. But watching wrestling NXT UK on @BT Sport, reckon me and you could sort these lads out. To which Davis replied, mate, I'm down with that. We'd be the dream tag team. Now, what's kind of interesting is if you Google Freddie Flintoff and wrestling, there are reports that Freddie Flintoff was actually involved in something wrestling related before. Apparently, he was going to be taking part in some reality show that was going to pursue his journey towards being a wrestler. I'm positive it was Freddie Flintoff that revealed that, which is kind of cool. I mean, I do know the ex-Norwich player ended up being in a wrestling show with the family of Paige, which was kind of interesting. So it's going to be cool to see where that goes. I know most people outside the UK don't know who Freddie Flintoff is, and most people in Scotland don't give a crap because he's an ex-cricketer, but be interesting to see what they do with it. Certainly a nice little crossover. Now, what we're going to do here is kind of funny. I'm going to pop some pictures up on screen to kind of cover this story. Now, WCW apparently had plans to do an animated show in 1999. Nothing was ever officially greenlit. There was, however, concept art. Now, another idea was going to be produced by Eli Roth. It was going to be called Chowder Heads and would have aired between segments on Nitro, which basically little shorts, little videos. The artwork is on screen just now. I'm going to be honest. I think it'd be quite interesting to see what they did with something like this. I'm a big fan of the segments that they were ridiculous, but I'm a big fan of the segments that they did with Billionaire Ted and stuff. I know they changed the course of wrestling history somewhat, but I was a big fan of them. There was something creative and something different. So having these animated sections would have been cool. Bearing in mind, animation was really, really huge in the late 90s. And we didn't yet have access to all of the animation that we do. It would have been something different to what WWE was doing. I certainly think they could have turned several of the WCW stars into important parts of that. Now, one of the concept arts that's available is obviously Bret Hart, who is without doubt one of my heroes. So it'd been cool to see him in an animated series, and hopefully at some point more and more crossovers will happen, because I do like the comics that WWE did years ago. I do like the fact that I have an Undertaker one, I have several, And some of the artwork is really, really cool. And if you're into that kind of thing, it's definitely something to get a hold of. But whilst we talk about that crossover, that is, of course, the end of the wrestling news section. And you know what? Let's talk about what happened in wrestling this week, because I'm going to have to double up and include this as my opinion corner, because I'm less than happy about some of the stuff that happened. In fact, before we go to that, let's go to some words that have been sent in by Stuart Murphy, and then we'll go straight in to the show reviews.
So, Mr. Anderson, you decided, without permission, on a show that I was hosting, a CWF special by yours truly, and you edit my video? That's out of line, out of order, and it's something that will not be happening in the future, and I will make sure of this. There are a couple of things you said as well that I want to address. You say the mole gave you information on someone. Then I need to find this person, because that is information that you are not privy to. Not yet, anyway. As for your wee thing that you got me to do, announcing JJ Andrews for the tournament, that's not happening either. JJ knows fine well why he's not in the tournament, why he's not anything to do with CWF, and it will remain that way. But another thing I want to really suggest, nothing big. You might be aware of it, you might not. But I have you, Mr. Martin Anderson, an interview lined up in a few shows' time, which will officially announce the second official participant in the CWF title tournament. And this man deserves the recognition more than JJ Andrews. So Martin Anderson, I'll leave it with you. Don't ever edit one of my shows again in the way that you did. And don't ever suggest to me that a man that has been stalking me, stealing my house keys, threatening me, don't you ever suggest something like that ever be on my show. I will see you very soon.
So yeah, big week. One of the things that's quite interesting is that Raw was always the flagship show, and even when they said SmackDown was the number one show, the A show now, it still felt like Raw was more of the A show. Certainly during lockdown, that doesn't appear to be the case. They've done some very good stuff on SmackDown, but let's start with what happened on Legends Night. Carlito was advertised and didn't appear because apparently what they said to him was, you are going to be in a cameo backstage, and we had several of those, and Carlito just said, you know what, sack that. I'm not traveling from the other side of the country. If you want me to wrestle, give me a shout, I'll do that. Now, we did see AJ Styles versus Elias, and we did get to see the bodyguard of AJ Styles, Omos, physically get involved. It's kind of this gradual progression for Omos. I think when we do get to see him in ring and something happens, it's going to be very, very interesting. He is a big dude. It's clear he's still a bit green. You can just see from how he is that there's a lot of work left there, but he's big, he's imposing, and they're being very patient with him, something that they haven't done with other people like Braun Strowman. I'm very excited to see where that goes. Now, the return of Charlotte Flair, which I predicted on the last live show that we did. I say live, it wasn't live, but you know what I mean. The one that wasn't sponsored by CWF, who we'll talk about more later. So Charlotte Flair made her return, and then the match on Raw, where it was Charlotte and Asuka versus Lacey Evans and Peyton Royce. So they split Peyton Royce up with their tag partner to put her into a tag team. I mean, come on, does that make sense to anybody? Certainly, the chemistry with the other partner was better, but maybe they have a plan. There is a very, very big botch in this match when Charlotte goes to do her little Mr. Perfect style. I can't remember the name of it now, but when she goes to do her move, she completely misses Lacey Evans, and it just goes to show that even when you're as good as Charlotte, you can still mess up. Didn't detract from what was overall a decent match, but it just goes to show what can happen. Now, Riddle versus Bobby Lashley is kind of interesting because just on the week that they announced he's signing a new contract, all of a sudden you see the presence of Riddle kind of increase on the show. I'm a big fan of what they did with Jeff Hardy when they did the Hardy Bros. When Riddle asked Jeff Hardy if he wanted to try his bro nuts, I thought that's kind of funny. And then I thought, well, actually, that's probably not the most sensitive thing to say in light of recent allegations. An enjoyable match, an enjoyable segment. Clearly, they have big plans for Riddle. Hopefully, some kind of rational conclusion comes from the allegations that have been made against him. Because let's be honest, with allegations like that, you wouldn't want to be promoting this guy. I certainly wouldn't. Dana Brooke defeated Shayna Baszler. Now, here's something I want to mention. There's a few people online bitching and moaning that Shayna Baszler is having a wrestling match on main event, saying, oh, what a fall from the girl who headlined the female side of WrestleMania. Well, she was on Raw this week. Yes, she's filmed a match for main event, but she's working. She's out there every week and she's performing. Bear in mind that she had a period after she debuted where she was off air for a little while. I'm sure she's happy to just be out there and performing, but some people think if you're not in the main event of every show, then clearly your career's falling by the wayside and you're having a horrible time of it. Frankly, I think she'd be very happy with what she's doing on Raw right now. She's looking strong, and she lost to Dana Brooke, but it was a roll-up. You know, these things happen. It's that old adage of anyone can beat anyone on any given night. And Gorilla Monsoon may have overused that phrase, but it was very, very true. Randy Orton defeated Jeff Hardy. This whole thing that they're doing with Alexa Bliss, and when they had her pouring gasoline over herself, and they ended the show with the lights going out and it looking like Randy had set her on fire. I don't get it. I mean, the visual was kind of cool when they did it to the Fiend, but I don't get it. It's not a lack of intelligence. I just don't understand why they would do something like this. Perhaps the USA Network saying they wanted more edgy content, and this is what WWE feel is edgy. Now, we'll move on. Interestingly, the Hurt Business, they're already teasing some tension between Shelton and Cedric Alexander, and I don't get why they're doing that so early. Overall, I think this team should be together long term, and I certainly do think that somebody like Keith Lee will be a great fit when they go in. But I don't think that teasing the tension already, I mean, it's almost like they just have no patience with some things, and it baffles me. Now, what we did see was the legends come out for Drew McIntyre versus Keith Lee, which was a win for Drew McIntyre. And there are reports that there was meant to be a segment where it came across that Drew kind of disrespected the legends. Now, in the version of Raw that I illegally downloaded, I didn't see that segment, and I'm told that segment didn't air for anybody else either. There are reports that it may have run in Canada or may have been edited into some of the international versions of the show later on, but I didn't see it. So when he came out and said that Drew McIntyre's been disrespectful to the legends, I was like, this makes no goddamn sense. And when I showed it to the producer Zoey Styles, I just showed the last 3 minutes of the show, and what's quite interesting here is it seems so rushed. And the one thing that pisses me off about stuff in WWE is when they rush it. And clearly it was rushed because things overran. It happens. But it just seemed so weird. And I don't know how they knew exactly that they had to finish. Perhaps somebody gave them a signal, or somebody mentioned that the video screens were actually giving a countdown so that Drew knew when to say what he said, so that they knew when they were going off the air. If that's what happened, then they timed it perfectly. I just don't understand how having your champion getting pushed down and landing on his ass, I don't see how that makes any sense. I don't see how that makes him look strong. And I guarantee you, if Goldberg wins that belt, there will be trouble. I don't mean there'll be riots. Certainly don't want to say there'll be riots. This is probably not the best week to be mentioning having riots. I'm not going to do that. But I don't think fans are going to be happy if he does win. Now, with SmackDown, some good stuff, some bad stuff, but overall, you'd have to argue SmackDown's the better show. And based on something that I mentioned earlier about Adam Pearce, who we will get to in a second, SmackDown was actually quite interesting. We saw the return of Sonya Deville. Deville is working with Adam Pearce to help run SmackDown, which I think is brilliant. It's a great way to bring her back. And obviously, she was retired out of WWE when she lost her match, dealing with the stuff that she was dealing with, the home invasion, etc. Made perfect sense to take her out. This is a nice soft way to take her back in, then get her ready for some in-ring competition. The SmackDown women's division is lacking. There's no denying that the Raw women's division have the more abundant talent, but Sonya Deville, somebody who can do very well, I think, in maybe 2-3 months, maybe right after WrestleMania, there is a nice story there to bring her back. Now, we did see the Street Profits lose the tag championships to Dolph Ziggler and Bobby Roode, who have slightly matching ring gear. Dolph wears the full length, whilst Bobby Roode just wears the swimming trunks, is what I call them. I know they're just trunks, but I'm still going to call them swimming trunks. Having the heels get the belt is very, very interesting. It gives Street Profits something to chase, which I very much like. What we saw, though, was Adam Pearce win the 5-way match. We saw a great wrestling between Daniel Bryan and Shinsuke Nakamura in that 5-man match, and overall it was very, very good. But it was made sure that Adam Pearce won. And of course, you know, for lack of a better term, when looking at this, I was shocked to hear that Adam Pearce was going to be the number one contender for the World Championship on SmackDown, or the Universal Championship. But you know what? He's a former NWA champion. He is a damn good wrestler. He is the scrap daddy, and let's be honest, he's a bloody nice bloke. I don't think he's going to be fighting Roman Reigns at the Royal Rumble. This is clearly them advertising something that is going to have to change, particularly if he doesn't have a wrestler's license, which might be how they get around it. They don't have a wrestler's license, they're going to go a different way. Now, with the rumours that Daniel Bryan's the one who's most likely to win the Royal Rumble, that does throw up quite a big storyline for WWE, with the idea that if Adam Pearce does fight for this belt, clearly he's not going to get it. But I hope that WWE, if they're going to let Adam Pearce wrestle at Royal Rumble, I think it'd be very interesting if Adam Pearce put on a hell of a match and actually came out looking good. That would be his retirement, his swan song. But I think it would be very, very good. In terms of AEW, I was exhausted after watching the Brody Lee special and haven't really had the energy to watch last week's show. But for all intents and purposes, apparently, with the exception of the Snoop Dogg dive, which is just, if you've not seen it, go out of your way. It's on the AEW YouTube. They left it on. It's horrible. It's absolutely horrendous. But it's been getting shown everywhere, and that's what AEW wanted. They wanted the publicity, and Snoop Dogg doesn't mind making an ass of himself, particularly with a face like his. So that's what happened in wrestling news. Let's get ourselves back into some CWF-related content. Now, I want to make it clear, this is not sponsored by CWF. This section is an interview with JJ Andrews, who reached out to me this week and made it clear that he had some comments in light of what was happening with Stuart Murphy. Now, I spent a few weeks where I didn't air any of the videos that these guys were sending, and then all of a sudden the videos kind of ramped up a bit, and I thought, well, do you know what? Let's share them. What's the worst that could happen? It turns out that they were kind of in on it at the start, Apparently not anymore. For more information on that, right now we're going to go straight over to JJ Andrews and find out what he has to say to Stuart Murphy. So hello, welcome to the show this week. I am joined, of course, by somebody who's been mentioned quite a lot, but hasn't actually featured in a little while, and that is JJ Andrews. Hello, JJ, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you? Happy New Year, by the way.
Happy New Year to you as well. Now, we are just a little over a week into the new year. Did you have a good Christmas and New Year?
Yeah, it was all right. It was pretty decent.
Did you
Had
get
a few drinks. So.
Yeah, I thought you might have. At Headlocks and Headphones, your name comes up more often than not through a certain person called Stuart Murphy. Now, one of the things that would be difficult to miss is the fact that you guys have kind of been a big part of the show in 2020. And this wasn't something that was intentional. And obviously, with CWF coming in and sponsoring the show through my producer, Zoey Styles, which I knew nothing about until it actually showed up on the show. So I actually, every week I go in and I click on the show just to make sure it's uploaded properly. And there I saw the CWF branding. And to say that I was a little bit pissed would be an understatement. So how do you feel about CWF now being the sponsors of the show for somebody you've known since school, but this friend is not allowing you the thing that he promised you?
I'll be honest, it's stupid. It's ridiculous. He's thrown his weight around, which he may be short, but there's a fair bit of it. He's abusing himself. He's abusing his power. It's ridiculous. Like, he thinks because he's starting a new company, he can take over this, he can take over that. He thinks he can be the new face of Scottish wrestling. No, mate, no, not at all. It's not happening.
So, when we spoke just after the last show aired, you were pissed and you had a few things that you wanted to say, and I said to you, just take a couple of days, because the things that you're saying out loud, I don't know if you want to put them out there publicly. And when you messaged me earlier, you said, and I'm going to use your words, fuck that, I'm going to say this out loud. So I'm going to kind of hand over to you now, and let's just kind of get what you want to say, because I think rather than me asking you 100 questions, you clearly have an opinion on the stuff that he's been talking about. And more importantly, you've been watching everything that he's been talking about. So you have some opinion on it.
I mean, yeah, all right. You know what? Let's go for it. Right, Murphy, you're all about transparency and honesty. Yeah, okay. All right, I appreciate you being honest with me, saying that I'm not going to be on the first show. I'm not going to be a part of that. But let's face it, we all know I'm going to be there. We all know I'm going to be sitting in that front row. So just let it happen. I will be there. The whole transparency thing, good on you. Well done. It's like you're trying to control me. Like you're trying to control Martin as well. Controlling Headlocks and Headphones. It does. It reminds me on a certain trainer. Oh, a certain trainer that try to control you, control the things around him. Now, you guys haven't mentioned him, but you know what? I don't care. He's not my ex-trainer. If you won't mention him, I'll do it. I'll happily do it. It was.
Wow. So, okay, if we're going to talk about transparency, let's take a beat here. You've just named the person that's part of the allegations that he's made. What exactly are you saying here?
I'm saying that if Murphy is all about transparency, then he should act on it. If he wants to step up and be a big part of the whole fighting against everything that's happened in the Speak Out movement, stand with the people, speak out, do it. Don't just say you're going to do something and be like, oh no. Say it. Deal with it. Fuck it.
Okay,
everyone needs to know.
Let's move on, because I think that's certainly something that's going to anger him. Let's move on to the fact that I was told by the CWF Mole that you were going to be the second participant in the CWF tournament on night one. Now, within minutes of Murphy reading that, he also stated that that would happen over his dead body. Now, I just want to know exactly how you felt about something like that. A man is willing to be dead rather than allow you to be on his first show.
I mean, when I found out that I was going to be on that show, when I was announced to be number 2, I was excited. I was up for it. I know we're still 6 months away, but, you know, as we've spoken about for the last year, near enough, this is what I've wanted to do. This has been my dream for 33 years. Like, I've wanted to do this. And then seconds after, he says no, not over. Like, I'll get my shot over his dead body. But the thing is, from what we've seen over the last year, that could be arranged.
Okay, so that's a very clear suggestion there that you're making. Let's move on to conversations about the Mole. Now, obviously, accusations have been flying around. The group chat that has involved Murphy has seen him accuse you of being the Mole. He's accused me of being the Mole, even though I'm being sent stuff, including the CWF title. I've been sent announcements. I was sent the venue announcement as well. What do you know about the CWF Mole? Because have they reached out to you at any point?
I mean, I know nothing about this Mole, this so-called person that's telling people things, that's going behind people's backs. I've not a clue. I mean, I'm just a guy sitting at home waiting to be told that he's number 2 in a competition. Like, I have no idea. But I'll be honest.
Are you the Mole? Let's ask the question. Are you the Mole?
I'm not the Mole. I have no idea who this Mole is. Even, like, is there even a Mole? Is there a Mole? Do you have proof that there's a Mole? I don't have any proof. I have no idea. So if I'm not the Mole, and you're clearly not the Mole, then who could it be? Is it just Murphy pissing about? I mean, it would explain a hell of a lot of things.
But I agree. I'm receiving quite a lot of information. I mean, when you follow the social media stuff, especially on Twitter, the person who's tweeting is clearly not Murphy. The person who's tweeting is tweeting things that are making Murphy a little bit mad. I know Murphy has somebody that deals with the social media stuff for him, and I know he has fallen out with that person a few times. I'm assuming, based on the fallouts there, it isn't the social media person. Somebody passed the social media person the CWF title picture. I know that I put Murphy in touch with the person who deals with the belt that's being made. But I haven't received anything from the belt maker, and I haven't received anything from Murphy. I have received something from an email address, and I'm not going to read out, but I've received various things from this email address, and they seem to be pretty accurate. I mean, when I announced certain details about dates and venues and stuff, I had that information before Murphy was willing to release it. So certainly whoever's giving me this information has enough access to it and has enough access to Murphy, because he claims that nobody else has some of this information. He also stated in the interview earlier in the show, or the video clip that he sent rather, that there is various pieces of information. He isn't sure how I've got it. So at some point, somebody's giving me information. But
He doesn't know how you got it. I mean, if we're looking at it, like, I may be in the same city, but I'm clearly not talking to him apart from through this. Like, so how am I going to get close enough to him to speak to him to find out who's doing this, who's doing that, what logos are being made up, what belts are being created for this company?
So
you can't do it. You're in Aberdeen.
When was the last time you properly spoke with Murphy?
I have no idea. It was maybe 4 or 6 months before we started doing this,
because
face to face.
One of the things that's quite interesting is there was a wrestling group chat with the three of us. We were at ICW Square Go last year, and everything seemed fine. We went for a few drinks afterwards. It was Super Bowl weekend, and we were sat in the sports bar in Glasgow, and everything seemed fine. And then obviously when lockdown started, communication kind of cut off, and then we started receiving videos from Murphy, and all of a sudden he's ghosting you as well, which I think is I don't know why he's ghosting you over this at all. It seems very weird to me that
because he's scared. He's scared that I'm gonna be a bigger star than he could ever be. He's scared that I'm gonna win his titles, hold them above my head, and be the face of his company, which he clearly doesn't want. I don't care about being a face of a company. I don't care about belts. What I care about is getting what I've been promised, which is my first match. And it just doesn't seem to be happening. Like I says, I've been waiting for this for over 3 decades. 33 years now I've been waiting for this. And he doesn't have the decency to follow through on a promise.
Or even speak to you and explain why, which I think if he wasn't going to give you it, but he spoke to you about why, you'd probably be a little bit more understanding.
Yeah. I mean, if he was to come on to the show and have a 3-way chat, which we had planned a while ago, and he just didn't show up.
I mean, there was a prolonged period where he wouldn't even show up for the things he'd arranged just with me and him. That's why when we actually managed to get a hold of him, it was such a big shock that we were able to actually get an interview with him. And interestingly, that interview happened in a pub. The first time I met him, the first place we went to was the pub. I'm not suggesting he has a problem. I'm just saying maybe that's the best way we can find him, is if we just find a pub.
We all have problems. We all have problems.
So, seeing as I have you here, let's we kind of mentioned the stuff we were going to talk about, so let's kind of pick at something here. Seeing as I've got you, let's take advantage of this. When you started sending these videos to Murphy, what were you trying to achieve? Was this was the intention to push him over the edge, or was it just to get a reaction and kind of show him the stuff that you can do? What was the purpose of it all?
I think when we first started this, it was to see how far we could go with it. Like, throw a video here and there, build up the company, do this, do that, the next thing. And have a bit of fun with it. You know, work on talking on camera, work on promos. But that seems to have just been thrown out the window, and you know, we just can't have a one-on-one conversation because, I mean, I'll put it bluntly, we hate each other.
It's weird. I mean, we've went periods without talking, and it's never descended into something like this. So I'm confused as to why. I mean, he's taken things very personally. I think what is quite interesting is one of the things that you have said to me is that you have been told who the person is that is going to be announced as the non-tournament match. Now,
the one that Murphy thinks was meant to be number 2, but then got moved to being in the main event.
Yeah, well, see, this one's quite interesting because I did see that the Twitter account posted the end of the conversation with this talent, and one of the quite interesting things is that obviously I know the creative team from CWF were very interested in having this worker, but you said that the mole hasn't been in touch with you, but you have been told who this person is. Now he's labeled himself as the most handsome man in British wrestling. He's also said that at least one person who shows up at the CWF show should be handsome, because it certainly won't be any of the wrestlers or any of the people in attendance. So clearly this guy is full of himself, but he doesn't want this name announced. He doesn't want to announce this name that could possibly sell tickets for the first CWF show. When you heard this name, what did you think when you heard it?
Well, when I heard this name, I thought, great, Magic. A great guy, great wrestler, awesome up and coming star. And he could do wonders for the company. I mean, a great guy. Like, he's a legend in the making.
Okay, so not only have you named the person in his allegations, but now you're releasing this before he has it. Now he's gonna tell you that clearly the mole has told you this. I'm intrigued as well. I found out from the mole that this person was going to be in the main event of the show. I was told, because I was sent the Twitter conversation in pictures, where I even know how much this person's charging the company. And to be honest, how Murphy's going to make any money out of this show, finding out what being paid is shocking. But he's going to ask how you knew. I know that didn't come from me, because I'm shocked that you knew who that was.
I mean, I know things and I don't know things. It's one of those things.
Okay, so from here, it's been good to have you on the show, because we kind of had a chance to figure out some of the stuff that we don't kind of get from the videos that have been sent in. And this is something that for a while, I contemplated just not putting these videos on. Certainly the one where you had flames and stuff was a little bit dark and certainly pushed some buttons. I think certainly today's one might push a few more buttons. But what's the next step? If we're leaving it here, direct your last closing statement to Stuart Murphy on Headlocks and Headphones.
Okay. Murphy, I know fine you're going to see this. But ever since this has first started, I've always been around. You know I'm always watching. Even though we're in lockdown 3, still not going to stop me from getting to you. I'll see you in June.